But the problem today, especially in the West, that I go speak out all over this country, this great nation, and I get into the airports and I look at these books that are on the shelves and I see books galore. You know, you got Christopher Hitchens, God is Not Great. Well, I don't know. I mean, he should have a problem with his name. His name is Christopher, which means Christ bearer. I mean, he should have a problem with his name. He should change his name. You see books like by Richard Dawkins, The God Delusion, that we as Christians are all diluted. We're deluding ourselves, you know. The Christians are always the problem. It's interesting that all these books is simply poking and picking on only the Christians. I can imagine Christopher Hitchens having the guts to write a book, Allah is Not Great. I don't know why they never write such a book. How come I'm the only one that's saying Allah is not great? But they tell you that we all worship the same God. That we as Christians, we are divisive. We are a stickler over this whole thing about only Jehovah is the true God. I mean, all gods are the same. We all worship the same God. Even going to a restaurant and sitting down and the waitress would come. I mean, I was with my manager, Keith. I remember, it was a few weeks ago. Remember the lady, the waitress? She comes over, we begin to talk about religion. Says, oh, we all worship the same God. I mean, such a unifying creed, you feel embarrassed to say nothing, you know. You can't say, oh, no, we don't worship the same God. What? You're divisive. You call me divisive again, you're not going to get a tip. But that's how they look at you. You're divisive. You sound divisive because what is to God really is opposite than the world views things. It's opposite than the logic of the world. You are divisive. How could you say that Allah and God are different gods? You must be an Islamophobe as well. You're an Islamophobe. Well, if God and Allah are the same, and Allah are the same, and all gods are the same, of the God Buddha and everything else is the same, all lumped up, you know, together with one deity, then can I go to a place where they worship Satan and they say, "Hail Satan," and I say, "Excuse me, can I get into your congregation and say, 'Hail Jehovah'?" They'll throw you out. If Allah and God are the same, can I maybe take a poster with me and take a trip to Mecca, and my poster will say, Allah, Jehovah, Buddha, we all worship the same God, and carry it in Mecca? I know you Americans are not used to what I'm talking about here. You think, well, Mecca, big deal, he can go to Mecca and carry a poster. Before you get to Mecca, big deal, he can go to Mecca and carry a poster. Before you get to Mecca, there is a big sign on the freeway, 4 arrows, you know, the big fat lanes. It says, Lil Muslimina Faqat, which means only Muslims. And there is a little arrow on the right, very narrow lane, that says non-Muslims. So if you want to take on my challenge, you want to go to Mecca and carry a big poster that says we all worship the same God, Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, whatever, may I suggest that you take that narrow lane and take that exit very quickly. Because if you go take the wide lane and you go to Mecca, by the time you take your poster out and they see you that Allah and Jehovah are the same God, boy, you're going to get your head on a pendulum, crescent-shaped pendulum, you know, and it's going to fly rolling. But you know, some say that when you're decapitated, you can still hear. Maybe you remember my words, and then you invite Jesus in your heart. Don't worry that your torso is separate from your head. God will unite the two together in the end when you rapture. But we don't worship the same God. It is totally a different God. Because by the time I began to look at the scripture and look at the definition of who God is in the Bible, I began to see that your God is totally opposite from my God. I began to see that your devil was my Allah, and my Allah was your devil. Simply the name is switched a little bit. Is in the skies. I began